Hey everybody, it's Jordan with the Getting Bit Fishing Team, and if you're wondering about quarter ounce, 3/8 ounce, half ounce, skirted, Colorado blade, Indiana blade, whatever it is when it comes to spinner baits, and you're just wanting to catch more bass this year, stay tuned for this video and we'll show you how to get hookups with those spinner baits. So we've determined that you want to catch more bass this year and you want to try using the spinnerbait. So whether you're a new angler or you're an experienced angler and you've been doing this a while and you're just looking to sharpen your tools to add a couple extra bass to your live well this year, this is a great video for you guys. So what's the first thing whenever it comes to any kind of combination out there or any kind of tactic? It's going to be your rod and reel combination. With spinnerbaits, we're going to keep it pretty simple, 7'1" to 7'3", 7'2". You're going to want a medium heavy even, fast action tip. Honestly, for me, whenever it comes to the reel selection, I go with a slower speed reel. A lot of times I go with a 6'1" to 1, 6'8" to 1. Whenever I'm throwing a spinnerbait, I'm often slow rolling it, taking my time. That's how you're going to get your bigger bites or most of your bites from a spinnerbait is through slow rolling it through the cover. But we'll get more into that later. So once we figure out our rod and reel combination, we got to get that bait in the water. And we got to make sure that once we get that bait in the water and we get it in front of the fish, that we can get that fish back to us. So with a spinnerbait, since you're going to be fishing around more sparse cover, some laydowns, oftentimes the bites from a spinnerbait's even bigger. You're going to want to go with a heavier line. For spinnerbait fishing, I don't go anything below 14-pound test, and I always throw fluorocarbon with spinnerbait fishing. There's honestly, you can use monofilament. I'm not going to say that for this, with me being a moving bait, the clarity or how translucent fluorocarbon is compared to monofilament is going to make a huge difference. I just like the added sensitivity behind fluorocarbon. So you can go all the way up to 24-pound test. You really just got to feel your conditions, look around, figure out what you think you're going to need to use. If you're pulling out bass and they have a lot of grass on top of them, a lot of added weight to them, move to a heavier line, because the last thing you want is to catch that PB that you've been waiting all year for. You're trying a new tactic, it breaks off at the side of the boat because you had too light a line on. So now that we got our line, the next thing we're going to have to figure out is what time of year are we throwing these things. Spinnerbaits, they work good year-round. They're a great search bait, but whenever it comes to the optimum times of year to use them, for me personally, early in the spring, darker red spinnerbaits whenever the crayfish are molting, it's great then. And then through the spawn, outside of the spawn, early into summer with a shad pattern, spinnerbaits work amazingly. Now, don't get me wrong, even after you get into the later times of year, in the hotter conditions, spinnerbaits still work great. They mimic bait fish swimming through the water, so they work good year-round. What I'm talking about is just when they work best, when they're the best selection for your primary bait for the day. So what sizes are we going to use? Well, it really depends on what you're fishing for. And what I mean by that is you got to match the hatch. That's a common term that you're going to hear throughout fishing. Match the hatch. So when it comes to choosing your spinnerbait, for instance, us fishing the Ohio River, a lot of times, the quality of the bass there, they're a lot smaller. Quarter ounce is great, or whenever you're in high pressure conditions, quarter ounce works great. But don't be scared to throw those bigger baits, even for all the fishermen following right now that fish the river. The half ounce, the 3/8 ounce, they work great as well. But when you see smaller bait fish in the area, throw a quarter ounce. When you see larger bait fish in the area, throw a half ounce or a 3/8 ounce. Or let's say you're cruising down the bank throwing a 3/8 ounce and you're throwing a smaller blade. You're getting tons of bites. Upsize to the next size up. Try a bigger blade to see if maybe there's a bigger bass out there that you can hook onto that day. Now that we got the size that we're going to use figured out, the next most important step, really one of the most important steps to any kind of spinnerbait, is going to be the trailer selection. So why do we need a trailer when we're using a spinnerbait? One, we're trying to mimic shad or bait fish swimming through the water. So that tail, it gives it that little bit of extra added realistic action that's going to help you get bites. But two, in my opinion, that plastic being back there almost gives the fish something more to hang on to. I am not a trailer hook kind of guy. They're not something I use. I will say if you like to use trailer hooks, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with them. But I really feel like with that plastic back there, it gives that bass something more to hold on to, which is going to help you get more connections and get more bass in the boat. When it comes to the type of trailer, like you can see here, this is just a Kitech style swim bait, a paddle tail style swim bait. When it comes to the color selection, the size, you have to fit that accordingly to the size spinnerbait that you're using. So once you get the trailer figured out, once you get the line figured out, the rod reel combination, it's time to go fishing with it. What conditions are we going to use this in? Spinner baits honestly aren't the best baits to use in clear, calm, sunny conditions, but they are great when there's chalk in the water, when there's an overcast, really any low light, cloudy conditions. Spinner baits work great for. What kind of cover are you going to go after? What kind of uh, uh, habitat are you looking for whenever you're fishing with a spinnerbait? A lot of times when you're fishing with a spinnerbait, parallel the banks. You're going to fish a lot of open waters. You're looking for laydowns and stuff. You're going to try to stay above those. Parallel the banks. Try to find rock bluffs. Try to find laydowns that you can parallel. Try to find cover that the fish are going to relate to, but also try to make it look like a natural shad swimming through the water column. If you're parallel to the bank and there's a couple laydowns, right? One, you're keeping your bait in the strike zone longer by paralleling the bank. But two, how often have you seen bait fish that are just swimming straight out and straight in? It's not a very natural look. So not only can you hit more of the laydowns, stay in the strike zone longer, but you're giving your bait a more natural look whenever you parallel the bank. Other conditions you can look for or cover that you can look for outside of laydowns or flats, stuff like that. Grass edges are great. If you can skip them under docks, they're great around there. Pilings, really anywhere that you would typically see a large amount of bait fish, that is a great spot for you to try spinnerbait fishing. So, clear water, dirty water, what kind of water? It all depends on which spinnerbait you're picking for the day. So there's a couple different options when it comes to blades. So as you can see here, we have a willow leaf blade. Willow leaf blades are great whenever the water conditions are more clear, whenever there's a little bit more sun, a little bit more visibility. Gives a little bit extra flash to kind of look like that shiner coming through the water. Dirtier water conditions, you're going to want to use your bigger blades, your Colorado blades, your thumpers, as some people may call them. So now that we've figured out the blades we're going to use, the line we're going to use, what kind of conditions we're going to use, the next step's honestly just getting out in the water and giving this stuff a try. We appreciate y'all watching these videos, but at the end of the day, this really comes down to getting out in the water and trying these techniques yourself. So, as always, thank you all for tuning in. God bless our veterans and our troops. We couldn't do it without y'all. Thanks for staying tuned.